What if everything you believed about Hollywood's golden couples was a lie? From Dakota's silent heartbreak to Blake's courtroom chess game and the Beckham wedding scandal that left a mother-son bond shattered, this story peels back the glitter to expose betrayal, manipulation, and secrets hidden in plain sight. You're not ready for this. Stick around. The story gets darker, deeper, and more personal than any tabloid ever dared to reveal. And by the end, you'll question everything you thought you knew about your favorite stars. Don't skip a second. For years, Dakota Johnson kept her silence. She smiled for cameras, held hands at premieres, and played the devoted partner. But behind the polished facade, her relationship with Chris Martin had already begun to rot. Now it's over, and this time there's no going back. They were Hollywood's odd couple, the indie darling and the Coldplay frontman. 8 years together, countless rumors, breakups that came and went like storms, only to be denied the next day. But insiders now confirm this was no clean split. It was slow, agonizing, and deeply humiliating. According to close sources, Dakota had been clinging to a version of Chris that no longer existed. She had grown close to his children, especially Apple Martin, who, despite her glamorous pedigree, had a reputation at school as a mean girl with a toxic entourage. Dakota tried to make it work, even with Gwyneth Paltrow's looming shadow. But the deeper she went, the more invisible she became. Friends say she wanted more, maybe even children of her own. But Chris, 48 and content, had already lived that chapter. Dakota, now 35, was still wondering what hers would look like. Then came the betrayal. Not just emotional distance, but something colder. Last year, while Dakota was away on business, Chris quietly packed his things and moved out. No warning, no note, just an empty home when she returned. The silence was louder than any fight they'd ever had. And it didn't stop there. Sources allege that before the move, Chris had been seen in Rome, not alone, but with a mysterious Italian model. They weren't hiding it, one insider claimed. It was more than casual. Now, Dakota is rebuilding. In a recent interview, she emphasized that trust is non-negotiable in her future relationships, a pointed remark perhaps aimed directly at her ex. Chris, meanwhile, remains evasive, hiding behind Coldplay's endless tour schedule. The heartbreak wasn't just about the breakup. It was about realizing the person she loved had already left long ago. She just hadn't noticed. Kim Kardashian built an empire on image. Flawless skin, curated selfies, high fashion. And now, a team of 10 full-time nannies who raise her children while she builds her billion-dollar brand. But what happens to the kids left behind in a palace with strangers and cameras? At first glance, it's easy to assume Kim is just another busy celebrity outsourcing parenthood. But sources close to the family say it runs deeper. It's not just help, one former employee shared. It's a full-on operation. The kids have more security than the Pentagon. Each nanny is paid over 6 figures annually. A generous salary, sure, but nowhere near enough to buy proximity to Kim's secluded life in Calabasas. These women are on call 24/7, rotating in shifts, ready to soothe nightmares or rush to North's room if a sensor on her door beeps. Yes, it's that high-tech. One TikTok went viral. A nanny claiming her young charge, Saint, casually said, "There's too many people near mommy. I'm going to be with my nanny instead." It struck a nerve. Viewers weren't shocked by the setup. They were heartbroken that a child so young already understood his place in his mother's orbit. Distant. Even more disturbing is the silence from Kanye West. Once loud and defiant about family, he now seems all but vanished from the picture. Insiders suggest he's either unwilling or unable to be a consistent presence. The result? A void filled with staff, cameras, and rules, but not necessarily love. Kim's defenders argue she's doing her best. She was raised with nannies herself. This is all she knows. But critics question whether that's an excuse or a cycle. These kids are going to grow up knowing their mom's Instagram filter better than her laugh, one commenter wrote. The irony is stark. Kim Skim's brand preaches comfort and closeness, yet her home is a fortress, emotionally and physically.
She insists on privacy, but her children are growing up under a microscope held by strangers. And while the world marvels at her empire, her kids might be wondering who their mother really is. Stay tuned because this glossy image may soon crack.
Blake Lively stood outside the courthouse, tearful, triumphant, or so it seemed. Her lawsuit clash with Justin Baldoni had taken a heavy toll, and though headlines claim she won, the truth behind the surface is far murkier. Just weeks earlier, the defamation charges against Blake, Ryan Reynolds, and the New York Times were thrown out by a federal judge. In public, Blake celebrated. She posted a carefully worded Instagram thanking women's rights organizations and declaring that justice had prevailed. But sources inside the courtroom tell a different story. Blake's team made a lot of noise, but the judge didn't dismiss everything, one insider shared. Justin was given the green light to refile most of his claims, and he's planning to. And he is. Justin's attorney, the aggressive and media-savvy Brian Friedman, made it clear, this isn't over. The claims of breach of contract and tortious interference, essentially alleging that Blake sabotaged his career, are still alive. And with the next deposition looming, Justin has promised that damning evidence will come to light. We'll be seeing her in person, Friedman warned. The roots of the lawsuit are tangled. Justin claims Blake, along with her team, intentionally fed information to the press to paint him as a predator, derailing his projects and cutting off partnerships. He says what happened wasn't justice. It was character assassination, carefully timed and executed with precision. Blake, on the other hand, is framing herself as a symbol, a woman punished for speaking up. But questions linger. Why did she go directly to the media with her side of the story before filing any internal grievances? Why did her publicist hint at details that only the legal team should have known? One of Justin's former colleagues even chimed in, laughing on social media that his lawsuit had become a punchline, though it's unclear if the ridicule was directed at Blake, Justin, or both. The court may have tossed out one chapter, but the next is being written now, and it could expose much more than either side ever intended. In the lavish world of the Beckhams, everything sparkles, until you look closer. Behind the polished smiles and family photos lies a quiet war, one that's been brewing since Brooklyn Beckham's wedding to Nicola Peltz. And it's not just about guest lists or floral arrangements. It's about betrayal, power, and a mother who may have gone too far. It started with a dance, or rather, one that never happened. On the day of Brooklyn's wedding, Victoria Beckham allegedly stole a dance meant for Nicola. What should have been a tender moment between bride and groom turned into an awkward hijack by his mother. Nicola was humiliated. Sources claim the incident triggered months of silence between the young couple and his family. Things escalated quickly. Brooklyn and Nicola distanced themselves. Communications with Romeo and Cruz dried up. The once tight Beckham clan fractured. Meanwhile, whispers circulated. Victoria had overstepped, again. She wasn't just the designer of Nicola's dress, she was trying to design the entire wedding. But it didn't stop there. Fans recently noticed Brooklyn had quietly covered one of his most sentimental tattoos, the phrase "Mama's Boy" inked proudly across his chest. In its place now blooms a bouquet of delicate flowers. Not just any flowers, the same type Nicola carried on her wedding day. A message, perhaps, subtle but unmistakable. Adding fuel to the fire, the couple hired a top-tier British reputation manager, the same one linked to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The move raised eyebrows. Were Brooklyn and Nicola preparing for something bigger? A public fallout? A tell-all? While the world watches their Instagram pages for clues, insiders say the relationship between Victoria and Nicola is now cordial at best. The warmth is gone. The silence speaks louder than any statement. Brooklyn may have left his old ink behind, but the emotional scars linger. Covered tattoos, unspoken feuds, and a family legacy cracking under the weight of control, independence, and one unforgettable wedding day. Which twist shocked you the most? Dakota's heartbreak, Kim's nanny army, or the Beckham's tattooed family feud?
Drop your thoughts below. Your comment might be featured in the next episode.
If you were hooked by this scandal-filled deep dive, smash that like button,
Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because next week's episode goes even deeper into the secrets they don't want you to hear. Don't miss it!